Hi, Davy.
Hi, Alanna.
Sorry, I just had to peek off screen so I could set up my timer. How are
You
you doing?
good? Uh, I'm good. I mean, personally, there's a lot of stress that's going on as far as my job and the new government and presidency that has come in and annihilated my entire organization. So yeah, there's a lot of stress coming right now. But as far as personally, I'm doing okay.
The world's a crazy place.
It is bananas right now.
The world is a crazy place. And I can understand that working for the government and the FBI, you're seeing the craziness a lot closer than the rest of the world is.
Yeah, it impacts me every day, unfortunately. And as a leader in the organization, my job's on the line. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. My job's on the line to potentially be fired. So,
That you seem to be laughing through the pain a little bit.
yeah, I think just laughing through the extreme measures that's being taken by someone who we're supposed to be supportive of.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I mean, I'll just gotta. I don't know if you've been following, but we were required to investigate, certain topics by the president, by the attorney general. We don't really have a choice. We're supposed to be nonpartisan, but we don't really have a choice when the director and attorney general tell us what to do. So all those people who investigated January 6th happenings in 2021, we prosecuted about 1,000 different people. They were all pardoned. And then all those agents who worked on those investigations are now potentially going to be fired and let go without a pension. It's that's just causing chaos within everyone's community, within everyone's job, within everyone's nervous system. Like we're all just wondering for when the next shoe is going to drop.
Yeah, with this new presidency and your role in kind of arresting the people that participated in the January 6th insurrection in favor of our current president. Uh, I I can only imagine the terror that you're feeling with your livelihood being on the line, especially as a single parent, three children. I I can understand your terror.
It's and there's nothing that really I can do about it. The problem is like it's out of our hands. There's nothing that we can control right now, and so it's just waiting. And in that anticipation of waiting, everyone's anxiousness goes up, everyone's uh, motivation to do the work goes down. So it's it's hard to maintain mm, that gratitude for my job right now.
Mhm. And there's a lot of pleasure, that's not a word, pressure put on yourself as a leader to sustain the morale in your workplace.
Yeah, I think it helps that I've gone through some quite a bit of therapy, and I think it helps that I'm in school and part of our EAP program within the organization. So I am able to be there for my students, for my squad, and allow them to just vent and just support them.
Yeah, yeah, I can sense that you're proud of yourself. You're proud of yourself for doing the work, going through counseling and doing school and so that you can be a leader and someone for people someone can lean on.
Yeah, it's different in our organization because typically as men, as first responders, we all have this image of us of being strong, tough, not being vulnerable. And I'm preaching the opposite. I'm teaching people that, hey, being vulnerable is strong. Like understanding your feelings and recognizing them and being able to lean into them is real. Like you need to be able to have these things. And so it's been kind of an opening of a door to allow people to kind of express who they are rather than trying to fit the mold of like your typical cop, first responder, FBI agent.
Um, I'm smiling because you're being the model of masculinity that you wish you had. Because you and I have talked about the strict patriarchal upbringing that you were exposed to and how those strict gender roles really negatively impacted you in ways.
Yeah, unfortunately, I see it in our presidency, and not to. Hopefully, this doesn't get out in public, so not going to talk too exposed too much. But you're exactly right. The patriarchy that I grew up with and needing to hold a specific standard was detrimental, and I hated it. And so shifting that mindset with myself and with my the people that I lead in my office, I can see a lot of hesitation
Mm.
from them. Um, but at least I can just be constant, be a consistent uh, uh, kind of not outlook, consistent support for them that they can show up however they want to show up.
Mhm. It it sounds like you're really confident in your ability to be a role model for them and to model the type of masculinity that you think would maybe be more beneficial.
Yeah, I think it's good to not have that imposter syndrome anymore.
Imposter syndrome.
Go, yeah, for sure.
Tell me.
I think going, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just gonna have you maybe explain what imposter syndrome looks like for you. Because it could look different for anyone.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and I think I'm facing it now, with going into becoming a counselor and not knowing what the hell I'm doing in this, wondering if I'm even in the right field and what I'm doing in school and if I'm ready for this. Um, and that feels really scary. And it feels like facing it, I'm looking at this mountain that's in front of me and I'm recognizing that, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to be able to climb this thing.
Mm.
Like I know that I can, but am I going to be successful? Like, how is this going to look? So kind of taking that mindset and within the FBI, when I first started, like I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how to investigate a crime. I had no idea, I had no background in this whatsoever. And so then stepping into it, there was the mantra of fake it till you make it. Like that is the mantra within the FBI. You don't know what you're doing until you actually learn from your experience. And so as a counselor, I don't like the mantra of fake it till you make it. So at least as a leader within the FBI, I have, 13 plus years experience now that I'm like, okay, I know what I'm doing, kind of. I can I can understand what to do so I can lead these young agents and to them help them see what success looks like. Um, but as a counselor, the imposter syndrome is really, really strong.
Fake it till you make it. That is something. How am I trying to say this? I guess my question for you is why can't that be applied to counseling?
I feel like it's a lot more fragile.
Hmm.
I feel like people's psyches, who they are, what they face, what they're carrying is a lot more fragile if you don't address it delicately in the right manner.
Mhm.
I think I also feel that way because so much of society and the people that I deal with and within my own family and my own circle, everyone's extremely reactive.
Mm.
And so within that reactivity, to me, it's based on like childhood wounds, something else that they don't feel like is they're being wronged, they're being um, offended by something, and so they need to stand up for it. Um, so sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Sorry.
Uh, uh, yeah, so fake it till you make it as a counselor. So as a counselor, I feel like it's a lot more. You're dealing with a lot more with someone's how they feel about themselves. That's a lot more delicate, more so than like investigating a crime. That's kind of black and white of like, oh, all right, you did this, 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 and this, therefore, justice is served.
So what I'm hearing you say is that you view your work as an FBI agent as very logical, very black and white. There's a simple solution to every kind of problem there. But in counseling, you are dealing with the weight of people's perspective of themselves, their feelings. That's precious cargo, and the consequences of not handling those things appropriately are they can be immense.
Devastating.
They right. And so that imposter syndrome, it makes sense now that uh, it carries your counseling, your identity as a counselor carries a different weight than maybe your identity in the FBI as an investigator.
Yeah. Yeah, I think as an investigator, there's that as we're looking at a certain, let's say, violation or a certain person, there are different pathways that you can go with that, right? Like you can take it to prosecution, you can take it all different ways, and you can be creative with it. But there's a certain kind of path that you can go down, and whereas in counseling, it seems as if there is no path. Like to me, it's like you're dealing with someone's whose history is so unique that you've never seen before. You might have seen unique, being able to have empathy towards it because maybe I've experienced before. But if I'm facing something that I've never experienced before, I have no idea really how to handle it. It's scary.
It it's very scary to uh, be presented with something very subjective, that there could be multiple answers to someone's problem, and kind of going into how you and I have looked at your problems with the biopsychosocial assessment you and I did the first time we met. We talked about a lot of different things. We talked about your medical history. We talked about your family and your friends and your peer support, substance use. We talked about a lot of different things. And there there could be many different answers to one problem, and every client is different. And so you're very scared being trusted with the well-being of another person, and you don't trust yourself.
Yeah, in this area, it's hard to trust myself.
That's
I think
something.
I can trust myself in certain things I'm confident about. Um, but yeah, I think there's a lack of trust
Mm,
in being able to be a safe space and a healing space for people.
that makes sense. You haven't explored you haven't really been able to practice that maybe yet. Maybe you haven't had the opportunity to show yourself, uh, sort of connecting back to how you feel confident in being a role model for your squad at the FBI. But that took 13 years of experience.
Yeah, it's a lot.
How might time and experience maybe change your confidence level, and your trust in your abilities to be a counselor?
Uh, I think facing different situations will give me that experience. And through failure, through mistakes, through learning, um, I'll be able to grow and better myself. And I hate to say that because if it's a mistake or a failure or something on my part, that means that someone else might be impacted by that, and that's scary.
Mhm. Well, you're able to identify that fear and identifying that fear and knowing that it exists, that is the first step to overcoming it.
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, if we relate it to something late, that just happened recently in facing someone dealing with depression. I've never dealt with it, and so it scared the hell out of me as far as like, shh, what do I do? Like, how do I sit there with someone that I don't understand what they're feeling? And that scared me. It was almost like a panic of like, I don't know what to do.
So you haven't ever experienced depression. That's something that those feelings are a little foreign to you. So the ability to walk in someone else's shoes who is experiencing depression kind of stopped you in your tracks.
Yeah, very accurate. It did. It stopped me in my tracks and it actually rocked me pretty hard because I I took a huge reflection on that of like, ooh, like if I'm facing depression, it seems like a pretty common thing. And looking at the DSM and all these things as far as like how depression manifests itself, and I, I've had depressive thoughts, I've
Mhm.
had depressive episodes, but I don't deal with like severe depression. And so being able to empathize with a client who might be facing that scared me because I'm like, okay, well, how, if I haven't experienced that yet personally, how do I help them deal with it when I have no clue what it might feel like?
Mhm. So kind of summarizing everything we've talked about in the last 15 minutes, you are dealing with a lot of uncertainty and fear in several different areas of your life. With the new presidency, your job could be on the line. Your
Yeah.
job could be on the line. We haven't talked much about your counselor education. That hasn't come up much in the last several weeks and the objectives we've been working on. I wanted to tie into the objectives in a second, but you have a lot of uncertainty in being exposed to things that you're maybe unfamiliar with, and you lack trust in yourself to be a healer. However, we talked about sometimes in the past where you felt like you were very unprepared, like when you entered the FBI, and through maybe feigning confidence and assuming confidence when maybe you didn't necessarily feel it, that confidence grew with time. And so,
Yeah.
sort of tying it back into what we came here for a few weeks ago and what we've been working on in the last several weeks, and the goal we set for increasing your level of self-love and acceptance so that you can enjoy life better and get the most out of your life. And we broke that down into two different objectives, if you remember. Um, One was to explore what self-love and acceptance looks like to you. And the second was to look in the past and see, point out your pre-existing strengths and the strengths you already have. Um, Tell me how how well you've progressed towards those goals, or how well have you identified what self-love looks like to you, and How have you recognized your pre-existing strengths this last week?
Well, I identifying self-love is still hard for me. I I don't know I don't know how that looks for me. Um, because I think it's kind of a fleeting moment where there are moments where I'm confident in my ability to take care of my kids and work full time and go to school and keep keep that task list in check. But the times that I don't love myself is perhaps when I have conversations with my kids
Mm.
and something doesn't land right, or I don't know really what to say. I don't have the guidance. I don't have the maybe the right words to be able to help them through their difficult time. And then I reflect on that after they've gone to bed, and I feel like a terrible father.
Mm.
And I think that's really where a lot of the emotion of the lack of self-love comes from because I'm like, God, what am I doing? I have no idea. I have no idea what I'm doing as a father, being a divorced
Mhm.
dad. Um, there's a lot of self-doubt in those areas. And that's really where a lot of that lack of self-love ruminates.
So, what self-love doesn't look like to you is sort of your ability to trust yourself. I'm noticing a theme where you don't trust yourself in your abilities to be a good counselor, to be a good father.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's accurate.
So, segueing into the other objective, and I think identifying what maybe self-love doesn't look like is adjacent to identifying what self-love does look like. And segueing into the second objective, you talked about some pre-existing strengths today, but I'd like to hear some more.
All right. Well, I just read a book and I did an activity that identified my loves and my dislikes about myself.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
So it's an amazing book. It's called Choose Your Story, Change Your Life. And um, and so I have the things that I love about myself, but I also have all the dislikes, which outweigh the likes. um, so yeah, these are ways that I have looked at my strengths and looked at the things that I love about who I am, but then areas that I still struggle with, and that I maybe this contributes to my inability to trust myself and overcome these things that I don't like.
Hmm. Yeah, you pushed yourself to do that this week. And I know I assigned some, I guess I don't like the word assign, but maybe suggested some tasks like doing what you did yourself. And I hadn't heard of that book before, so I will definitely be looking into that book. So kind of taking a break from the goals and the objectives, walking away. What's something you're looking forward to next week? That's going to happen before I see you next.
Uh, Something I'm looking forward to. Well, I this is a big week. My partner's flying in, and she's going to meet my kids for the first time.
Hmm.
There's a lot of stress around that.
Mm.
Actually, I take that back. There's not a lot of stress. There's a lot of fear, I guess, from my kid's point of view. I have no doubts about her. Um, I don't fear anything about how she's going to interact with them or anything like that. I fear for my kids as far as what they're experiencing of a new person that that is important to me that's in their life. It's
That's
really fearful.
that's a uh, that's a what word am I looking for? That's a milestone event in
Mm,
merging merging your relationship with your partner of a year that's been long distance with your true devotion to being a good father.
yeah, yeah, and I'm looking forward to it because of the way that I've interacted with her and seen her parent. Um, I guess I have a lot of I don't know if it's fear, but I think there's some anxiety with regard to my children of not wanting to. I fear upsetting them. I think that's a big piece of it.
That makes a lot of sense. Blending
Yeah,
families is a very delicate process,
yeah.
and there is a lot of uncertainty, and all kids are different. I'm sure Oliver and Winnie and gosh, Georgia.
Georgia, very
Georgia.
good. Yeah,
And yes, I knew. I'm sure they're all completely different from one another. So that is,
completely different.
we got just a couple minutes left. Let me
Yeah.
just stop that. Um, so since we've kind of taken a break and kind of thought about what's going to happen next week, let's kind of connect, let's kind of connect our overarching goal and little steps we can take to uh, maybe learn to trust yourself and harness a little more confidence walking into this stressful experience and this stressful time in your life. Let's think of one SMART goal, so something specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound that like an activity you can complete before we talk next week that either identifies what self-love looks like to you or um, pointing out your pre-existing strengths.
Hmm. Okay. Um, the idea comes to mind as far as like when I'm facing something of the lack of self-love to be able to write that down and identify what's happening in that moment. So that way I can understand the trigger that might be that might be causing it and then digging deeper into that trigger of what that means to me from childhood or other past experiences.
So maybe doing some therapeutic journaling and being in the present and taking note of where taking moments where maybe you don't feel love for yourself and trying to explain the why.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that that would help me identify um, those areas where I lack the self-love and that might overwhelm the other things that I love about myself. Right? I tend to hyper focus on the things that I don't love about myself rather than all of these other things that I have listed here. Um, but it seems as if like that kind of engulfs everything.
Okay, let me brainstorm. Okay, so I want you, before you and I talk again next week, and when your partner meets your children, I would like you to point out one thing on that list of things you like about yourself and almost exaggerate it. Maybe just have that be what your focus is. And so give me an example of one of the things you listed under the like section.
Um, uh, I think one of the things that I am able to do that I love is my ability to see both sides of a problem, both sides to a story, especially with my kids and with my partner too. Um, Being able to look at it from all different lenses. Um, I mean, there's the other random stuff is like, my motivation to be healthy, my ability to cook, pursuing a passion of therapy, changing careers, desiring to heal, love of my children, all those things. So um, I don't know like what you mean by exaggerating, but yeah. Do you have any ideas?
Yeah, I guess I didn't explain that well, so I apologize for that. I guess what I was envisioning is you have all these things you really like about yourself, like cooking and being healthy and seeing both sides of a situation. Push yourself to maybe when your partner and your children meet, recognize your ability to understand that it can be really difficult for your children while also reconciling that your partner is a great parent themselves and you don't have many worries with them with your
Yeah,
partner.
yeah.
Um, just focus on that. Focus on those
Okay.
things. And one last thing for you to think about. I know I asked this in our first meeting, and you said that if you were to wake up tomorrow and you were to feel all the self-love in the world for yourself, everything would change. I want you to start really visualizing what that looks like, of about what things would change if you woke up with all the self-love in the world.
Hmm.
Start thinking about that, and maybe we can talk about that again in the coming weeks.
Okay.
And
I
maybe
like
that
that.
can help us identify what self-love does look like to you rather than what it doesn't look like.
I like that. I can do that.
Okay. Well, uh, we might be a little over on time, but it's okay. Uh, thank you for coming in today. We talked about a lot about fear, a lot of uncertainty and anxiety, and I'm sure we will have a lot to catch up on next week with everything going on in the crazy world right now. So
Yeah.
my my wish for you is to stay well and take care of yourself and reach out if you need anything.
Okay. Awesome. Thanks, Alana.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.